everybody. Welcome to Zone Defense. We talk all things NBA and NFL. Be sure to follow us on Spotify at Zone Defense Podcast, on Twitter at Zone Defense Pod, and hit that subscribe button down below because it really helps out our channel a lot. Also, let us know who you think these final few playoff spots will be decided. Today, we will be doing our Week 18 NFL game picks. How's it going, Roman?
I'm good, Chris. Like you mentioned, Week 18, last week of the regular season. A lot of playoff scenarios could happen this week, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. Drew is unfortunately not here with us today, but he put his picks in the document. We'll go over those a little bit. But I'm really excited to finish out the regular season and hop into the playoffs next week with you guys. So we'll hop into the news and notes here. Some quarterback injuries worth talking about. Joe Burrow, quarterback of the Bengals. He had a knee injury last week in his win against the Chiefs. He's sitting this week among with other Bengals starters because they already wrapped up the division, as I already mentioned, and they really have nothing to play for in Week 18. Baker Mayfield, quarterback of the Browns, has a shoulder injury. He's been kind of dealing with it the past few weeks. They're officially eliminated from the contention last week, so he's going to sit this last week out and have shoulder surgery, and we'll see how it affects him next season. Obviously, they still have to make some big decisions whether to bring him back or what to do with him. Apparently, Baker might request a trade fairly soon. We'll have to see, but a lot of drama, more drama with Baker during the summer. So we'll see what happens in the offseason. Wide receiver Michael Gallup for the Cowboys has a torn ACL. He's out for the season. Sucks for him, especially because he was going into a free agency year where he could got a good contract from another team, but this injury will probably affect him, and he'll probably miss part of next season as well. And then we go to the defensive side of the ball. Bobby Wagner, a knee injury. He wants to play this week in Week 18, but it looks like he'll probably be out. I know when he got hurt last week versus the Lions, he was down for a little bit and didn't come back in the game. So we'll see what happens. I doubt he plays like this week, as I mentioned. And then Trayvon Diggs, this was just recently put out there. He's going to be out this week with an illness. So that's big for Dallas, who, even though they've already won the division, they can still wrap up maybe a 2 seed potentially if they win. So Trayvon Diggs is a huge part of that defense. So we'll see what happens. And one more offensive injury that I forgot to mention, Damian Harris with a hamstring injury. He was limited in practice, but we'll see if he's good to go. Obviously, New England has a big game this week. If they win and Buffalo loses, they win the division. And speaking of the playoffs, we'll hop into some of the playoffs clinching scenarios that happened last week. Packers wrapped up the NFC bye week with the win versus Minnesota last week. So big win for them. Unfortunately, Minnesota, due to that loss, they got limited. But the Packers, once again, the playoffs will go through Lambeau in the NFC. So we'll see if this is the year they can finally make it to the Super Bowl. Two teams wrapped up division wins as well. The Cincinnati Bengals, Tennessee Titans both won their divisions. For the Bengals, a great story, worst to first from last year to this year. And the Titans, a big win. That was mostly due to a Colts loss versus the Raiders. Tennessee Titans, we thought they'd kind of fall in the playoffs or falter to the Colts at least, who we thought the Colts were coming up strong. But the Titans are actually going to get Derrick Henry back. He was activated off IR today as we're recording, so he might play a little bit this week. They'll definitely have him for the playoffs, so it's definitely a good a key ad for the Titans, who can also wrap up the bye this week with a win at Houston. The Bills, the Patriots, and the Eagles all clinch playoff berths. Obviously, the Bills, Pats still have to play for that division. If the Bills win, they win the division, but the Pats can still clinch that division, as I already mentioned. There's a few spots available in each conference. It looks like the last few spots in the AFC will go down to the Colts, the Steelers, Pittsburgh potentially, and also the Raiders and the Chargers. So a lot of teams still at stake there. If I had to give a prediction, I guess it would be the Colts potentially, and then an interesting scenario is that if the Colts beat the Jaguars, or the Jaguars beat the Colts, then the winner of LA and Cincinnati makes the playoffs. Although if they end the tie, they'll both make the playoffs. We'll talk about that a little later too. That's just a very interesting niche that could happen this week. And then the NFC side of the ball, the NFC West is still up for grabs between Arizona and LA. That will be determined this week who wins that division. And there's one more wild card spot up for grabs. It'll likely come down to San Francisco or New Orleans potentially. So we'll see what happens this week. A lot of stuff gonna be determined in these last few games. And then obviously the big news coming out of last week was the Buccaneers released a wide receiver Antonio Brown after his antics on the sideline, on the field, heading to the locker room shirtless. It was a mess. He sold for my fantasy team. Unfortunately, a lot of people had him starting in the championship game. Not a great look, but he got released. He wasn't originally, but he was released yesterday. So now we'll be looking for a new team. We'll see if he even gets an opportunity. I'm not sure about that. Maybe a GM takes a chance on him. We still don't know the full details of what happened between him and Bruce Arians, or what happened. There's a lot to be discovered and deciphered with those tweets and all those different sides of the story. So we'll see what happens. But what's certain is that Antonio Brown will not be playing with the Bucs anymore. For a team that desperately needed him, to be honest, without Chris Godwin, without Leonard Fournette. They barely scraped by against the Jets last week, and they'll be definitely depleted going into the playoffs. So we'll see if they get Chris Godwin back. They definitely need him, but losing Brown is a huge hit to them, in my opinion. But those are nudes and notes. Chris, do you have any opinions on any of these topics?
Yeah, I mean, on the AB news, we probably never will know what exactly happened in that situation. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
AB has been injured all year, so I mean, the ankle excuse, I mean, I think is something that it absolutely could be true, and I feel like Arians is a coach that would be, I could see what his side from his side that all makes sense. So I don't think it's total BS, but it could be. I mean, it's AB, so we really don't know. I don't want to speculate too much on that, but hopefully we'll figure out what I get to the bottom of this and see exactly what actually happened. And see if he actually has a chance of being in the league because he's a very talented player still, as you can see this year. He was still really solid. But yeah, they definitely. This is. I honestly think this takes Tampa Bay out of Super Bowl contention. I don't think they're winning. I don't think they have any chance. Their defense hasn't been that good. They almost lost to the Jets last week, but without. I mean, they're without Fournette, and when they get in the playoffs, he's probably not going to be 100%. They're without Mike Evans is definitely not 100% right now. They
And
don't
and
have Chris
and
Godwin.
and Rojo got banged up a little bit too.
Yeah, exactly. So they're down a bunch of guys. It is Brady, so you can't rule them out. I mean, they got Tyler Johnson, Cecil Grayson, which is another guy kind of stepped up last week. Um, in that comeback win for them, he was really big down the stretch when AB basically retired. But yeah, I mean, I just don't see it with them. I don't think they have enough firepower to beat some of the elite teams in the NFC. But I guess we'll see. You can't really count Brady out because he's such a good player. But let's go ahead and get into the pick 'em now. We'll start Kansas City, Denver. It's not really a lot to talk about. I think Denver has officially been eliminated from playoff contention, so there really isn't a lot to talk about in this matchup. If you want to add anything, Roman, that's cool. But I'm going to quickly pick Kansas City in this one. They're going on the road. I think they're going to get the job done.
Yeah, Kansas City is still obviously fighting for that bye week. They can definitely get it with a win and a Tennessee loss. Denver, I believe, is starting Drew Lock once again. So we'll see how that kind of quarterback play lingers into next season, whether it's Bridgewater, whether it's Lock, whether it's a different quarterback in general. I expect them to go after Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers, or maybe draft one. So we'll see. Vic Fangio potentially on the hot seat as well. Him and Pat Shermer have not done a good job offensively this year with Denver. Their defense has actually been decent, even after losing Von Miller, but the offense is a lot to be desired, especially when you have Judy and Sutton, and the production has not been a whole lot this year. So those are the kind of notes I'm looking at this offseason for them, because I think they're one quarterback away pretty much.
Yeah, Denver is right there for sure. Like a few different teams over the last couple of years, they just needed a quarterback. They found that quarterback, so I'm hoping that they a little bit better next season because I was a little disappointed in them this year. But next up, we got another game on Saturday. Kansas City's, I believe, at like 4 o'clock. This one's at 8. Dallas and Philadelphia. Dallas was without some big names on both sides of the ball. Trayvon Diggs, Tony Pollard. Philly is in the playoffs, surprisingly. And, I really think Jalen Hurts is a guy that we should talk about. I know I mentioned I have a rant. This is not it. I think Jalen Hurts is honestly the answer at this for this team. I think he's shown plenty to be the franchise guy. I mean, you can look at his passing numbers. Yeah, they're not crazy, but he's completing around 60% of his passes, which is a major increase from last season. They really don't have a lot of weapons. I mean, Dallas Goddard's good, but he's really only been good for like 5 or 6 weeks. Like lately, he's kind of broken out in the second half of this year. Devontae Smith is a rookie. Like he's good, but he's not Jamar Chase either. So this isn't some. I don't think this is some top 10 receiver in the NFL. All right, this is a guy that's solid, but I mean, as your clear number one receiver, I mean, he's definitely not anything outside of like a top 30 receiver at best in the league as of right now. So like, I think Hertz has done a really good job here. I mean, they run the ball a lot. He uses his legs a lot personally, but he's been very good with the turnovers besides a couple games. I know when they played Dallas last time, he turned the ball over a ton. I think 2 or 3 times in that game. He did against the Giants in one matchup, but he's only got 11 on the year and 26 total touchdowns. I think he's got like 3,600 total yards if you include the rushing. He's been good, man. I don't get some of the hate he gets. It's because he was not a first round pick, and that's pretty much it. I think he's been good enough to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. But with all that being said, because I need to make up ground on Drew, I am taking the Dallas Cowboys in this one.
Yeah, if you can see the standings, Chris and I are tied for second, and Drew is 3 ahead of us. So I think this is a good game for us to get a game back on him. I agree with everything you said about Jalen Hurts. I do think he's the answer there. Him and Sirianni have had a great chemistry this season. And like you mentioned, I don't think they're out of the running for another first-round wide receiver this year. They have 3 first-round picks. They can definitely spend one on a Garrett Wilson, a Jamison Williams, another piece of that offense because Jalen Reagor is not it. And out of Devontae Smith, you have no one really. So I think they can definitely look to get another wide receiver, whether it's through the draft or in free agency. But for this game specifically, even though Dallas is missing some key players, and even though Dallas really has nothing much to play for, I'm going to go with Dallas. And this is a matchup that we could also see in the first round of the playoffs too. So I'm looking forward to seeing if this is the matchup we get to.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. Next up, we got another matchup: Green Bay versus Detroit. This one will be a little more interesting if Green Bay was resting some of their guys, but it doesn't sound like they're going to. So, with that being said, Green Bay is the best team in football right now. They're actually my Super Bowl pick as of right now. I think they're going to get the job done this year, and they're going to be an easy selection for me in this one.
I wanted to pick Detroit so bad because obviously they locked up the bye, they have nothing to play for. Normally in this type of game in the past, Detroit would beat up on the Packers last week of the season. We've had plenty of those games where they're just benching their stars and we kind of manhandle them. Uh, I wish this was the case this season, but like you mentioned, they are going to play their best players. Rodgers, Devontae Adams, their defensive studs. Jair Alexander could be back this week. We'll have to see. Like I mentioned, I do want to pick Detroit really badly, but it only makes sense to pick Green Bay, so I'm gonna go with them.
Yeah, I mean,
Golf could play this week, so that's good for us Lions fans to see him back on the field after missing a few weeks. Winning this game does nothing for us in terms of the draft order, so we're gonna get a top 2 pick no matter what. So I like seeing the best players we have on the field as we of yet, and then we go into the offseason.
yeah, I think this game really goes one of two ways. I think Green Bay crushes us either they crush us in the first half. Rodgers plays a half, throws a couple touchdowns, and they bench their starters, or it's just a tight game throughout, and maybe Detroit hangs around and possibly wins. Most likely not, but we'll have to see. I think this game could be fairly close, especially in Detroit. There isn't really much to play for in that game for them. Jacksonville would have to beat Indy for them to get the first pick, I believe. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
even know if they would with that happening. I'm not 100% sure on that, but um, with Detroit, it really doesn't matter a lot if they win or lose this game. So they'll fight hard in this one for sure. They're definitely not going to give up. But I'll let you introduce. Well, I'm going to say this next game. I'll let you pick first. I have picked first the last couple. Cleveland versus Cincinnati here. It's in Cleveland, but Cleveland has basically nothing to play for. I'm actually a little surprised Drew picked them here, but Roman, take it away, man. Do you want to go with Cleveland and the upset, or are you going to take Cincinnati?
Well, I I get where Drew is coming from. I mean, despite how bad Baker has been, and he's not even going to play this week, it'll be Case Keenum, who arguably is more well suited and more comfortable in that offense than he is. Still have Chubb. That defense is still fairly good. Cincinnati, I mean, Joe Burrow isn't playing. They're likely going to sit their stars, even though uh, they're healthy. They're going to be healthy scratches. This is something that still has to be determined. So it's kind of hard to pick Cincinnati because you don't know who's going to be starting and who's sitting. But if you take Joe Burrow into account, if Joe Mixon sits, if Jamar Chase sits, their defensive stars Trent Hendrickson sits. I get why they pick Cleveland, and I was hoping he would go Cincinnati. I'm going to go Cleveland as well,
Wow.
on the off chance that Cleveland sneaks this game out with some backups on the field with Cincinnati.
Yeah, that makes my decision easier. I mean, I really don't know for sure if we're going to see a lot. I know Burrow's out, but so is Baker. I know it's a bigger impact for Cincinnati, but since he's just been rock solid this year, I think they'll play some of their guys in this one. I haven't seen a lot of things about their whole starting lineup sitting. I just see Burrow's going to be out. I feel like Chase, Higgins, Mixon will all be out there at least for some of the game, and we'll see. I mean, this could be a I mean, both it really this one's a tough one. This one is a tough one because both teams don't really have a lot to play for. Cincinnati's already locked up the division and a playoff spot, and Cleveland has no shot of making the playoffs. They've already been eliminated. So really, I mean, it's about next year for Cleveland. It's about the playoffs for Cincy. So this game really doesn't mean as much as maybe it did a couple weeks ago. But we'll jump into the next one here. Tennessee versus Houston. Derrick Henry might be back for this one. I hope he is for a little bit of the game. I'll make the first pick in this one very easily. Tennessee. And I'm starting to see the problem with Week 18, man. It's not really done a lot for the league because a lot of these games are very easy picks.
Yeah, if Henry does play, I only expect him to get like a few snaps, maybe a drive, ease him in a little bit before the big more important games of the playoffs. Houston, they kept with it with the Niners last week. It wasn't a total blowout. Davis Mills, I mean, I think we like him. We both like him pretty much. So we'll see what Houston does in the draft. They'll probably be picking third most likely. But Tennessee, they win this game and they lock up the bye.
Yeah, I agree with that. If Henry does play Houston, he shreds Houston. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he'll be on obviously a limited snap count. Maybe he'll play a quarter or two. Maybe they won't need him for very much time at all in this game. But I really think that he will gash them if
You can
if
get
he
like
does play.
three touches for 100 yards, something
Yeah,
like that.
could see it, man. I could absolutely see that. But next up, we got a game. Another game really doesn't mean anything. Chicago versus Minnesota. Has Minnesota been officially eliminated? I
Mm-hmm.
believe they
Yep.
have, or they have
Yep.
not.
They
Oh,
have.
they
They
have.
have.
Okay, yeah. So both teams eliminated in this game. Really, a game that doesn't mean anything. Fields is not starting for Chicago, so there's zero interest in that side of the ball. I'll let you start this one. I don't really have much to talk about, but go ahead.
Yeah, Andy Dalton will be starting for Chicago this week. I expect Kirk Cousins to be back this week, although I have not had confirmation on that yet. Chris, maybe you saw something different, but yeah, this game is pretty much meaningless, as most of these games are in Week 18. Unfortunate to say, but I'm gonna go with Minnesota. I think they just have better offensive weapons, and I'd like Minnesota to win this one.
Yeah, I no nothing to add to that at all. I'm gonna take Minnesota. Next game, uh another really easy man. This slate does stink. Um Washington versus New York Giants. I'm just gonna not even talk about this game because I New York's so bad and they haven't scored any points at all. Give me Washington. Honestly, I don't even know what the spread is in this game, but I'll tell you right now, as a betting man, I'll be taking the Washington side of whatever that spread is because I New York has put up like 7 points in the last 4 weeks total. They can't move the ball. They don't even have a quarterback to play this week. I have no idea who their starting quarterback is going to be. It's either Brian Lewerke or Jake Fromm. So I mean, they're probably going to do the same thing they did last week where they run the ball 700 times, even though they're losing by 300 points. So, Washington, yeah, this will be a blowout.
Yeah, Giants have nothing to aspire to. Joe Judge is kind of on the hot seat, I guess. He's not doing a good job. He's trying to dig himself out of a hole, but he's not really helping himself. And apparently, David Gettleman might retire after this year. That could help their front office and their draft pick and their whole philosophy thing going into next year. Because Daniel Jones needs the help he can get. That Galladay signing was not worth it.
Nope.
Washington, February 2nd. Yeah, they're gonna get a new name. Any predictions, Chris? Any guesses for
What was
Washington?
that?
For Washington's new name? Any guesses?
The Admirals. That's my guess on that.
I like the Red Tails personally,
I do
but
as well, but
that'll be something interesting to note. That's the only interesting going on with this team at the moment. But I'll pick them to win this game.
yeah, I have again not really much to talk about with this game. The next game, New Orleans, Atlanta. Another two teams I believe are both eliminated. They are. I'll let you start this one. Who do you think's going to come out with the victory in this one?
Actually, I think the Saints are they're sitting outside of the playoffs right now, but I think they could sneak in potentially with a San Francisco loss. I think that's how it works. But going against Atlanta, nothing really to play for. I do like Arthur Smith. I think he's done a decent job. I think Atlanta's overachieved due to our standards going into the season. So I think there's something to be excited about or see the potential with him at least. They just need a better quarterback after Matt Ryan because they have to look at the future. Pitts having a record-setting season, so that's good for him. But New Orleans, like I do mention, they have something to play for. I think Taysom Hill has a good game. Hello. I'm gonna go with New Orleans in this one.
Yeah, I'm actually trying to stall a little bit for time here. I'm trying to see if Kyle Pitts is going to be active for this game or not because it's saw he might miss the game. I'm vetting that really quick right now. So let's see what's his status right now. Kyle Pitts, he's questionable as of right now. Yeah, I might just go with Atlanta. I don't really care about this game, and I need to make up some ground on Drew. This is a game that I could see going either way. Atlanta is home. probably have the better quarterback in this game, even though Matt Ryan sucks as well. I could see Taysom Hill having a rough game, even though he has had some good games against Atlanta in the past. Well, I don't know. We'll see. This is probably the upset pick of the two, but I'll take it here. I'll take the chance on this one. But next game is Carolina versus Tampa Bay. Again, I know I'm starting this one again. I'm just going to put Tampa Bay in, and we can move on unless you have anything to add.
No, I think Carolina they're just gonna move on to this game. If the Buccaneers come out flat again, maybe there's a chance Carolina can swoop in and get the upset here. Although it wouldn't mean much of anything. Carolina's quarterback situation is going to be the most notable going to the offseason. So, similarly to Denver, I think they are in some sort of a sense one quarterback away. And Sam Darnold experiment, it started off pretty good, but then it just came to a crashing burn. And I don't think he's the answer as we kind of thought we was at the beginning of the year.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree with that. Again, Tampa Bay should win this game easily, but we talked about it. I think their Super Bowl chances are very much in doubt now. But let's go into Indianapolis against Jacksonville. I'll let you start this one, and then I'll talk about it.
Yeah, this is a big game. Obviously, with the Detroit matchup, as we already talked about, if Jacksonville wins and Detroit loses, Detroit gets the first overall pick again. But I don't think that'll happen. I think Indy goes in there and smokes them. Although I believe that Indy has not won, they're 0-5 in the past 5 years in Jacksonville, I believe. So that's a very odd stat, but that's what it is. And Jacksonville, I think, just for morale purposes, it would be a big win here. But I'm gonna go with Indianapolis.
Yeah. Not really much to add over here either. I'm gonna go with Indy, but I this is the game that I would like to rant about. Nothing to do with the Colts whatsoever. It is about Jacksonville and Trevor Lawrence. I have seen absolutely nothing from him so far in what has basically been a season of football. This guy has he looks like a bust. I mean, it's straight up that's what it is. I mean, I willing to say it? Like, already right now, this dude was the first pick. He was supposed to be generational talent. He's none of those things. I mean, he's been terrible, frankly. He's been the worst quarterback at all the rookies. I mean, Zach Wilson has been bad too. Obviously, he's been really bad. But I've seen some flashes from him at least every once in a while. He's had a couple special plays here and there. Justin Fields is the same thing. Has he been good this year? No, absolutely not. But I've definitely seen big time throws, big time runs from him as well. And then obviously Mac Jones, even Trey Lance. I've seen some things from Trey Lance that I've been very happy with. Honestly, he's shown a lot more in 2.5 games that he's played than I've seen from Trevor Lawrence all year. And I'm just worried, man. I know this team is not good. Yeah, they have a great simulation of weapons? Not really, but I don't really think Zach Wilson has some crazy weaponry to work with. I don't think Justin Fields has a lot to work with either. I mean, frankly, Mac Jones really doesn't have. I mean, they're obviously a better offense, but they're not. They don't. He doesn't have like a number one receiver or anything. So you can say that about any of these guys that they don't really have a lot of weapons around him. But Trevor Lawrence has been downright pitiful. I mean, this dude was supposed to be the best quarterback since Andrew Luck, which ironically they're playing the Colts this week. But he's supposed to be the best quarterback since Andrew Luck, and he's shown absolutely nothing. Like, obviously, he was going to be on a team that's not good, and I wasn't expecting to be some absolute superstar right out of the gate, but I was expecting something from him this year. I don't care about the record or anything. I just have seen nothing from him. Like, he's got like 9 touchdowns and 17 picks. He's thrown like 2 touchdown passes since Halloween, which is like half a whole season. I mean, if you take out the first couple weeks of the year where he was like 3 touchdowns, 3 picks, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, he's been like by far and away the worst quarterback in all of football. And there really is no I don't know. I don't think there's any excuse personally. I think this if he has another bad year and they're a top 3 team, I think they'll draft another quarterback after this season. Not this year obviously. I think they'll take another I don't think they're going to give him they shouldn't give him 4 years. That's in my opinion at least. I don't think you should get 4 years cuz he was supposed to be this generational talent. I just have seen he hasn't made anybody around him better. I know yeah, they're injured. James Robinson's injured, but he was out there for a while. He's a good player. I mean, he was involved in the offense. Marvin Jones, I don't think he's some superstar. He's not bad. I mean, Chenault was a second round pick. I mean, they have some players that can do something out there. I just have literally seen it's decision making. It's just not being able to put the ball on the money. I've seen besides, a couple passes in preseason, I've seen literally nothing from him this year. I don't know. That's pretty much the end of the rant, but I mean, like it's just I just don't get it. I haven't seen anything from him. I think he's going to be a bust. I mean, even if he's a mediocre starting or even a top 10 quarterback, like if he's like the 10th best quarterback in the league, he's still a bust. He was the first pick. You should be a generational talent. I don't think he's that. I don't think he ever will be.
I do agree with you in some senses of that. I think Jacksonville's offense, I mean, their weapons are better than other teams, to be fair. So I think Trevor Lawrence should have done a lot more with what he had. I mean, Laviska going into year two, expected to take a leap. Marvin Jones is nothing to scoff at. He's a good veteran wide receiver that can stretch the field as well. And then DJ Chuck unfortunately got hurt week one of the season, so maybe that took a hit. Maybe they had chemistry that kind of was lost. But they also have James Robinson, who we all like. Obviously, they lost their head coach, and there was also dysfunction the whole season. But if you look at the past few seasons, it was Herbert, Burrow, and Tua all showed flashes last year. Two of the three were on pretty bad teams. Uh, you gotta see something from your rookie quarterback to make you positive for the future. That's why it's so important for Jacksonville to nail this head coaching hire, because whoever they're gonna hire will be in it for the long haul. Obviously, Urban Meyer was supposed to be in it for the long haul, but that was unrealistic for those standards to be put on him. So whoever they hire should be a smash hire, an offensive minded coach for sure, someone that can revitalize the offense, starting with Trevor Lawrence. I think it is an enticing destination for sure because you want to work with a guy like that, a first overall pick. But yeah, see it to believe it as well. So obviously, he didn't do enough for maybe us to be happy with, but we also got to remember he was on a bad team, expected to be on a bad team, uh, and he just had some bad breaks this season. So I expect him to improve personally. I won't call him a bust just yet, but I do think there's a lot to be left desired. In terms of the entire draft class as a whole, I think all the quarterbacks have been underwhelming in some capacity. Kind of a letdown from last year, but I think Lawrence was ahead of the class, supposed to be, but he's not playing like it for sure.
No, that's part of the thing. Like, yeah, this was a really good quarterback class with five guys. I mean, Mac Jones has clearly been the best one of five of them. He's been way better than even expected this year. I mean, to be fair, he went to a better team, but it's not like their weapons are anything special. They have a good run game. They do have a decent offensive line and some good tight ends and everything. But he's made those players better. To be fair, I think he. I mean, you saw it last year. This is like the skill position players are really not. I mean, they're better, but they're not that much better than they were last year. There and he's been considerably better than anything they put out on the field last season. So I definitely think Mac Jones has been clearly the best. But like, yeah, like you said, I mean, Trevor Lawrence, yeah, can he? Is he already a bona fide bust, like non-starting quarterback in the NFL ever? No, I'm not saying that, but I am saying I think he will be based on the. I mean, if his expectations is he's the best quarterback since Andrew Luck, he has to be a top five quarterback or he's a bust. That's my opinion with that. If he's a top seven quarterback, still underwhelming in my opinion, because that's like a guy that maybe you could win a Super Bowl with, but is not like I'm not an elite quarterback in my opinion. I don't think seven would be in that. So I think he has to be an elite quarterback not to be a bust. I mean, this dude was supposed to be the savior, and he hasn't been. I mean, he just hasn't shown anything. And next year they'll be without James Robinson, but we will have Travis Etienne back, so that could be an improvement if they can figure out how to use him. Which I mean, obviously, it wasn't a very good draft pick. But it would have been a little more interesting to see how he's a really good receiving back, so he could have helped in this offense. I know it wasn't a good pick at all, but he's a good player. So I mean, now that the pick is already put out there, they have to do something with him. So, and that's going to be his chance to shine as start of next season for sure. So I'm looking forward to that. Maybe they'll take a wide receiver in this draft class with that 201, 202 pick. That would be a smart idea because Chenault. I didn't think he was that great in the draft process at all. I really didn't like him that much, and they haven't used him properly either. So I don't know. I mean, there's some things around him to build on, and then, yeah, I agree that the next coach. I think this will be one of the top coaching destinations this offseason because there's some fun players on the defense as well. But this guy that comes in has to be ready to nurture Trevor Lawrence. But
A
I mean,
quarterback whisperer.
yeah, hopefully because I mean the way Trevor Lawrence looked this year it was pathetic, man. I'm telling you, it just was absolutely pathetic. But enough on that game, and I figured, since we're not doing the fantasy picks today, I figured we could dive into some topic in one of these games, and that was
That
the
was
rant that
a great rant.
yeah, it's a good discussion because there's some things in Jacksonville that are very dysfunctional, but I really didn't see a lot from him this year. So hopefully, hey, I'm not rooting for the guy to fail now. I don't really have I'm not a fan of Trevor Lawrence. I'm not against him. I just I'm just kind of looking at it how it was this season. He just has not been very good. But let's jump into the next game here. Pittsburgh and Baltimore, two teams that are clinging on to some outside playoff chances, and they really need Jacksonville. It's another team that needs Jacksonville to win against Indy because that could boost their chances a little bit. But yeah, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, both teams fighting for a spot. Lamar Jackson has actually been ruled out again, so he's going to be out. I I'll start this one. This one's tough because Pittsburgh beat them last time with Lamar Jackson. I believe he was out there for that game. I am going to go with Pittsburgh actually in this game. Deontay Johnson he was on the COVID list, but he was just taken off of it, so he will be playing in this game. This is probably Big Ben's last game. I think they're going to come out and win. I hate picking Pittsburgh because every time I do, I feel like they let me down. And it was really annoying to have Najee and Deontay in fantasy as well because this offense just did not move the ball consistently enough. The Pittsburgh defense is still good. Baltimore won't have their starting quarterback, and their defense stinks. So I will go with Pittsburgh.
This might be a hot take, I don't know, but Tyler Huntley is becoming one of the most valuable backups in the league this
Oh,
year.
absolutely.
He can definitely play himself into a starting role next year, depending on the right situation, or become a backup like a QB1, QB2 understudy type of thing. I think he can definitely play himself into a much better contract, better team situation. But this game is very intriguing for multiple reasons. Like you mentioned, one of these teams could potentially make the playoffs due to some other help from other teams. Like you mentioned, Deontay Johnson is back off the COVID list. This will probably be Big Ben's last game. Great home finish last week versus Cleveland. Baltimore's defense is becoming a little better. I mean, they kind of made Matthew Stafford look pretty bad last week, although
A lot of teams do that.
he's been continually looking bad the last few weeks. So I think
Surprised.
Baltimore they can get some turnovers off Ben Roethlisberger for sure. Um, this is a tough game to pick in my opinion because I do think Tyler Huntley can do almost the same thing Lamar could, um, and I think Pittsburgh Roethlisberger that's just too uncertain for me to pick. So I'm going to go alone in this game. I wasn't anticipating on picking Baltimore, but I'm going to take them in this game. And although they lost like 4 or 5 in a row, they'll end the season strong.
Yeah, I mean it's possible. I mean they're still fighting for a playoff spot, so they're going to come out swinging in this game. Honestly, and this is what do you think the chances? And I know I already kind of know your answer to this. What do you think the chances are that Baltimore decides to move on from Lamar Jackson and build around Tyler Huntley instead of paying Lamar Jackson much? Because I think this is his fourth year in the league. They already exercised his fifth year option, so probably be the guy next year, obviously. But honestly, I agree. I'm not saying he's better than Lamar Jackson, but Tyler Huntley's look good, man. I mean, he looks like a guy that could absolutely be a starter in this league. I mean, I'm not saying I would do it, but maybe you build around Huntley and you let Lamar go so you don't have to pay him. I mean, that could be an outside. I think it's a very low chance, in my opinion. But do you think that's just flat out stupid, or do you think that would be something that wouldn't like you would be curious to see if how it works out?
I think Huntley leaves before that the Ravens front office gets the option to pick between either one of them. I think he'll go to his first opportunity because I think Huntley knows Lamar is the guy there. So if he can get an opportunity somewhere else, I think he'd jump at that right away. So
That's fair,
I think Tyler Huntley definitely has a lot of football left to play in his career. Has a lot of story left to write. I don't know where he would fit. Good
right?
fits for him. Maybe Pittsburgh next year potentially. We'll have to see. I think that'd be a good spot. Maybe Washington, potentially Seattle if Russ leaves. But I think Tyler Huntley will have a lot of suitors this offseason. I don't know what his contract situation is, so whether you get him in free agency or
I
potentially a
think he's a
trade.
free agent this year.
Yeah,
I'm
I think
not
that's
positive, but
definitely better for Huntley getting that option instead of kind of forcing a trade to go somewhere else. But I think Lamar is certainly the guy there. I think Huntley leaves before they even get an option to pick between the two.
yeah, I mean, Huntley, I'm a little worried how he would fit with pretty much any other team. That's the only thing with him is
Right.
like,
Similarly to how like Lamar would be with any other team.
yeah,
It only works in Baltimore.
right. I don't know. I mean, I feel like there's certain coaches that are smart enough to where, they get this guy and they figure out how to build a new offense. But yeah, this is the one. That's where I think honestly Huntley might just re-sign with Baltimore as their high-end backup again for another season. I could see that happening because I don't know
Potentially.
if he's going to get a starting job anywhere else. I think he's starting level player, but I mean, this is a guy that if you say like the Panthers could be a team that could sign him in a free agent, like they could do that, or the Broncos or something. You could try to build it around him. But what if he's only good in Baltimore? He's not actually a great player.
Hmm.
That's very possible. So that's a lot of chips riding on one piece being like you need him to work out. If you have to build the offense around him. You can't just force him into your system. You have to build the offense directly around Tyler Huntley because he's very similar to Lamar Jackson. And I think that, that pistol option offense is pretty much how you're pretty much boxed into that if you were to take a guy like that. So I think honestly, I think his best home is probably Baltimore still. And maybe he'll
Fair
just be the
enough.
backup because Lamar, I mean, has shown this year at least that he can get injured. So maybe he'll just be a career high end backup, a good guy for fantasy to have if you have Lamar Jackson, almost like a handcuff running back for Baltimore's quarterback situation if they sign him long term, which I could see happening. I absolutely could see Baltimore paying a little bit of money to bring him back in for a couple more years. But
Yeah. Plus Baltimore, if you're the coaching staff, you know that if Lamar ever had to go out again, you know that you have a very competent backup in Tyler Huntley who can do just as much of the same. And although they haven't been winning these games the past few weeks, they've always been in the game in terms of being it close, competitive, and they're also dealing with a lot of injuries on the defensive ball themselves, and their offense is not fully healthy themselves. So I think Tyler Huntley, considering what he's done, I think it's fairly very impressive. And I do agree, like you mentioned, he could very well get a good handcuff, a 1 year deal potentially with Baltimore to return.
yeah, I agree with all that. But let's jump into the next game. This is an easy one. Buffalo, New York Jets. I'm taking Buffalo.
Yeah, as am I. This will win the division for them. It wasn't originally in their hands the past few weeks, but I think New England's loss to the Colts put destiny in Buffalo's hands, and they've won out since. So fair play to them. They beat Atlanta last week in the snow, so I think it could be another snowy game in the Jets. I do also want to mention that this will likely be the matchup for the Bills in next week in the playoffs. Patriots at Buffalo. We'll probably see that
Oof.
again. So that will be the trilogy playoff game that I'm looking forward to as well.
Yeah, that will be a good one for sure. It should be a close game, but we got New England and Miami next. I wish Miami was still fighting for something here because I actually would probably take them in this game. I guess I'm kind of spoiling my pick. I'll let you go first next time, but I will take New England in this one. Like I said, if Miami was still in the playoff running, I think I would go with them for a little bit of try to make up ground on Drew here. But I just don't think Miami's got the firepower to beat New England even at home. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, a part of me wanted to take Miami just to call an upset here, and Miami did beat them in Week 1 in New England. But I think these two teams have been on different trajectories since then. I know Miami has won 7 in a row. I talked about it last week. I don't think that really meant anything. And now the questions are still on Tua, whether he's the starter for next year, starter for the future. He could potentially be in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. They're still talking to him about getting that trade done. But I like New England in this game. Obviously, with Buffalo winning potentially, they wouldn't get the division, but like I've already mentioned, they can definitely get a winnable game at Buffalo where they already won earlier in the season.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let's jump into the next game. Seattle versus Arizona. I'm not sure. Do you know the division? Yeah, I'll go through. We'll go through this first. Arizona, LA. Who do we? What's like the situation? Do you know exactly what the who
So
can win?
if the Rams win, they win the division. But if the Rams lose and Arizona wins,
Then they win the
Arizona wins the
division.
division.
Okay, yeah, all right. So I think both these teams have a fair shot at the division then, because these games are both winnable and losable. I think for both teams. I'm gonna go with. Oh yeah, you're up actually. I'll let you. I'll let you actually. You can finish all three of the last games out, but you go first in this one. My bad.
Sure. Arizona got a good win last week in Dallas. Kyler Murray was undefeated in AT&T Stadium, so that streak continued. Seattle, they kind of go out over a lot of humps, and although they did play Detroit and put 50 points up on us, at least it restored, I guess, some certainty that Russ can be capable of a game like that, regardless of who it is. Metcalf finally joined the party, had 2 touchdowns. Lockett was all right in that game too. Rashad Penny absolutely dominated on the ground. Like I mentioned, it was versus Detroit, so take with it what you will. But I think that that'll ride that momentum into this game. Arizona, although it was a good win, it was also an ugly win. There were plenty of chances where they could have lost. I think they're going to struggle in the playoffs. I don't see them going very far. I'm actually going to take Seattle in this game because I think they have a lot more
Oh.
momentum and they want to spoil the party for Arizona.
Yeah, that could be definitely the case. I'm going to go with Arizona in this one, but I do see it. I think this is going to be a close game. And I do actually agree. Unfortunately, as a Cardinals fan, I don't think they're going to make it super far in the playoffs. Kyler's a little banged up. I don't know if they're going to have Hopkins back. They get Hopkins back. I think that makes things a little more interesting. Maybe Watt will be back. Actually, I've seen some rumors of him potentially coming back for the playoffs. So if they get those pieces back and they're mostly healthy, I think they could make some noise. They're definitely not the team I'm going to take to win the Super Bowl or anything like that. I think that maybe they could win a game in the playoffs, but outside of that, I don't really think they're going to get super far. And I don't really have a lot else to talk about. Seattle doesn't have much to play for, but they are still fighting hard. They look pretty good against the Lions. Put up a lot of points against them last week, which the Lions defense, I was a little surprised. They've been good, but they did not look good last week. So
The Cardinals also activated J.J. Watt off the IR, so
yeah,
I don't think he'll play this week, but they'll definitely have him for the playoffs
yeah,
potentially,
that's good.
which is
That's
a good
actually big for them.
which is a good story for them too, because we all expected Watt to be at least out for the season, but he'll likely get a chance to play um in the playoffs. So
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully for their sake, and I really hope they have him back. Because I actually think that makes them a little bit more. Again, I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl or anything, but I think them adding Watt and Hopkins back for the playoffs actually gives them a legit shot of making some noise. At least I don't think without those guys, I think maybe they would win a game. Maybe not even that, but with them, I think maybe you could see a rematch if somehow I could get there between Green Bay and Arizona. I think they could get to the NFC Championship at full strength, but let's jump in the next game here. I'll let you start us off. San Francisco, LA, Rams. This is actually a good game. One of the few on the slate that is actually interesting. The Rams won ugly last week against Baltimore. Stafford, again, like you said earlier, looked absolutely miserable in that game. San Fran has been hot and cold all year. They did win last week with Trey Lance. He may be start again this week. We don't know yet for sure. I would probably put my money on Trey Lance starting and then Jimmy G taking the playoff game if they end up making the playoffs, which I think they will. But who do you want to go with in this one?
I'm annoyed at San Francisco for multiple reasons. Obviously, they won with Trey Lance, and it's good for him development of his career because he's obviously the future. But you have to acknowledge that the San Francisco offense looked at least somewhat better, more high powered with Jimmy G. And even though you got the turnovers from him, you also got a more consistent offense with Debo, consistent targets of Debo and Kittle and stuff. Obviously, Lance had to progress in that game to where he was playing good at the end. He did get Debo at one big touchdown. Ayuk seems to be his favorite target more than anyone on that offense. But I think with Jimmy G, you open up the offense a little bit more, and obviously that's due to him being Lance being a rookie. So I kind of understand that, but it was also kind of annoying watching that game. How even though it should have been was more one sided than it looked in the end. And obviously for the Rams, they've won multiple games in a row, all coming with multiple turnovers from Matthew Stafford. And the last time these two teams played on prime time, the Rams lost in devastating fashion to San Francisco. This game is probably one of the biggest games of Matthew Stafford's career. If they win this game, they win his first division title. And to shock the world, I'm going to pick San Francisco in this game,
Wow.
whether they have Jimmy G or not. I think this is a game that they can spoil it. And due to me picking San Francisco and Seattle, the Rams would still come away with the division. But I think San Francisco can win, and is also a strategic pick in this pick. I need to get ahead of Drew as well.
Yep, I'm going with San Fran as well, regardless of what you did. I like them in this game. They look good against the Rams last time. I think that Stafford has not been very. I mean, he started off the year, obviously, he was an MVP candidate for the first 7, 8 weeks. But since that is, in my opinion, he's not even remotely close to my top. And that he has been so bad the last like 7 or 8. He's been a mediocre quarterback. Let's put it out as he's had some good games, but every average quarterback does have some good games. He's also had some dreadful games. And the only reason, you can say, oh, he led them back in that Baltimore game. The only reason they were losing that game is because he played so damn bad. So it's not because, that he played well and they needed him down the stretch. It was more he sucked so bad that it kept Baltimore with the backup quarterback in the game. And were they did Tully even? Yeah, I think he played. He played last week. Yeah, he
Oh
did.
yeah,
He
he
was out.
did. Yeah,
He was out the week before. But regardless, I mean, this was a backup quarterback on a team that really didn't. I mean, I guess they had something to play for, but it just I don't know, man. I just haven't liked what I've seen at all from Stafford. The rest of the Rams, yeah, they have picked him up enough times to where, and he's played well in some games to be fair, but I don't know. San Fran looked so good against them last time. I think this will be a better game,
Cam
but
Akers will be back.
oh yeah, I mean, he probably won't get very many carries, but I hope he does get a couple touches in this one. So we'll see. But enough about that game. We got the biggest game of the week, the Sunday Night Football game, the Chargers versus the Raiders. This is a colossal game, and this is pretty much what, like, if whoever wins gets in the playoffs, I believe. Is there a
Potentially,
shot?
yes.
Yeah, I think there's one for sure playoff spot in this game, actually. I do believe one of these teams will make the playoffs no matter what happens. Both can make it if it's a tie, but it sounds like the Raiders aren't going for that. I think they should for my betting sake, but uh, we're probably not going to see that. Um, but yeah, I'll start this one. I'm going to go with the Chargers. They've been very up and down this year. Both these teams actually have been. So I feel like this is a toss up. I think the Raiders are home. I think that gives them a little bit of an edge in that department. But Derek Carr either looks miserable or he looks very good. The Chargers have a good secondary. They have Justin Herbert. They should be mostly healthy going into this game as well. So I'm going to go with them. I think it's going to be a good game. I think it can be pretty high scoring as well because I don't think either one of these defenses are going to shut down the opposition. But I'm excited for this matchup. I'll definitely be watching this one. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think either one of these teams would be deserving of a playoff spot. Vegas, they started the season 3-0. It kind of came to a halt with all their drama at midseason. Another one of their corners got like a DUI or something like that, but he didn't get punished, or I don't know what the exact charge was, but he is back on the team. I think Nate Hobbs, the cornerback, I believe. So he's back on the team, and it would be in Chargers fashion to lose a game like this, considering that they've kind of fallen flat in some big games in the past. But I do think I'm picking the Chargers. But once they're in, I think they're a very dangerous team. I think if they have all moving, all the gears going, they can definitely make a run in the Super Bowl. I would love to see them win their first game. It would probably be a potential rematch against the Chiefs. We'll have to see, but I like them in the playoffs if they're in. Um, and I think this is a game that they should win. But the Raiders, I do give them a good chance to upset, I guess, quotes, upset this game and get a playoff spot. But I'm very interested in this game.
Yeah, me too, for sure. I think this is going to be a good fight. But, outside of that, not really a lot else to talk about. Do you have anything else to add before we close this one down?
Well, as we mentioned on the top, Drew is winning the pick 'em. He's up 3 on us. I think we've done enough to put us in contention to win. We obviously split on enough games, so hopefully it does one of us a favor going into next week as we reset for the playoff pick 'em as well. But I'm very excited to see how these games shake out and how the final playoff spots look too.
Yeah, me too as well. There's definitely, there's a lot of bad games, kind of like there is for every last NFL. You can play 52 games in the NFL, and a lot of them aren't going to be very meaningful in the last week. But there are some good games that I am very much looking forward to. But, to wrap this one up, we are the Zone Defense Podcast. We do, episodes on the NFL every single week, along with most of the time fantasy analysis, and then obviously the breaking news. We'll have plenty of that coming for the playoffs as well. But please subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Spotify and Twitter at Zone Defense Pod, and search us up on Apple Podcasts. And then smash that like button. Give us some comments down below. Who do you think is going to win the Super Bowl? Do you think the Cardinals have any chance? The Colts, what do you think about them? They've been, one of the hotter teams in the league down the stretch. Do you think they can compete in the playoffs as well? But thank you for listening to the episode, and we will see you next time. Peace.
See ya.